We are recording.
Stream is live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special edition of the House of Woo. We've got Joe Domina. Is that how you pronounce your name? Domina? How
Yeah,
do you?
you got it. Yep.
Domina?
Domina. Yes. Domina.
Uh,
Yeah, you got it right the
oh,
first
Domina
time.
the first time. He's actually a friend of
Yes.
Ron's. That's how I met him, and so I'm going to let Ron introduce him.
I met Joe. How many years ago was that? It's been several years. I met you at St. Francis of Assisi's when Joe
Hmm.
was the director of the missionaries at St. Francis of Assisi's. And Joe came from New Jersey, where he had been working missions there. And before that, Joe was discerning, he was studying to be a priest in New Jersey, yeah? And
Yeah, I was studying in Minnesota.
Minnesota, okay. Discerning that priesthood was not, he was not called to the priesthood, but um, the interesting thing is, was it before that you were in Israel at the tomb of John the Baptist?
Hmm.
And if you could pick it up from there.
Whoa, wait. I just wanted you to introduce him because we got to go way back. I think to
Oh,
do this
yeah.
right. We got
Okay.
to go. We
All
got to
right.
start PVK style. So, Joe, how acquainted with the corner are you? Have you been watching any of this stuff that Ron does, or the people he
Just the,
interacts
the
with?
little, just the little bit that, yeah, just the little bit that Ron has told me. So I'm not super
Okay.
familiar with it, but I'm
Okay.
grateful to
Cool.
be here.
So we'll ask you a question. This is a kind of a standard question by a great leader, Paul Vanderklay, Pastor Paul Vanderklay.
Okay.
He always starts out. He does lots of these interviews of. He calls them randos, and we always start out a rando interview by
Mm.
asking, "What kind of home did you grow up in?" That's the
Yeah,
first question.
I grew up in a suburban home in the northern suburbs of Indiana. Um, Kind of an up and coming town. It's been more and more populated ever since I've left. I had my mom and dad, they met in culinary school, and both of them are trained chefs. So the food in my home was very, very good. Um, and I'm grateful for that. I have one sister. She's 16 months younger than me. So I'm the oldest of two. We had a yellow lab named Buddy who I begged my parents for years, and finally, when I was like 11 or 12 on my birthday, I got that dog, and that was awesome. Um, Two-story home. We had a weeping willow tree that I got when I was in third grade and planted in the backyard, and it's probably 40 feet tall now, which is pretty cool. It did really well. Little hill in the backyard, and we'd go sledding down it when it snowed and stuff like that. Really, really good home. Um, we had our struggles in our family just like everybody else. Faith was a part of who we were, but it wasn't who we were. It was kind of something we did as opposed to who we were. I would say more of our family identity was wrapped up in food, and my dad is a huge Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so that was another big identity piece for me as a kid to be a Steelers fan.
Now
Yeah.
you started to study for the priesthood. Yes. How far along did you get?
Yes, yeah. So I did after I graduated high school, I did 2 years at Indiana University. I My first year I was undecided. My second year I studied psychology, and then I studied 3 years in the minor seminary and got my philosophy degree through the University of St. Thomas. So I studied for the priesthood for 3 years, and in the Catholic Church. The priesthood is broken up into two different sections. You have minor seminary and major seminary. So I finished minor seminary, but I did not move on to major seminary.
So minor is like undergraduate and major graduate. Would that be a reasonable comparison? How do we relate that to secular
Absolutely.
education?
Academically, you're spot on. So you get a bachelor's degree in philosophy, and then you get a master's of divinity in theology. And then the formation piece of it, because it's not only intellectual, there's also like some formation going on. The easiest way I can describe it is in minor seminary, they form you as a man, and then in major seminary, they form you as a priest.
Did you leave? Well, let me just ask you plainly. Why did you leave? Why did you not move on to major seminary?
I did not have peace with moving on to major seminary. That was the biggest thing. I really didn't know if God was calling me to be a priest or not until a
Hmm.
year after I had discerned out and decided not to move on. So there was just enough there that I wasn't confident with moving forward. And as I continued to pray about it, I got more and more direction, peace, clarity with, yeah, God not calling me in that direction.
Was it a good experience for you? Did you enjoy minor
Oh,
seminary?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So
Yeah.
no bitterness,
I
no
think
angst,
I'm
or I'm sorry.
no, not at all. Yeah,
Good.
it was a wonderful experience. I got to really connect with the priests there, and they were very like influential father figures in my life, and there was really no kind of cajoling or like pressing down on like that you're in, so now you have to be a priest. It was a very free environment, and I think that that is not common, or that's not uncommon. It seems to be kind of the experience of most seminarians that I've talked to that have discerned out is yeah, there's really no bitterness, or I look back on it very, very fondly. Um,
Mm,
yeah, it was a great
nice.
experience for me.
Um, Now, a little spoiler for we'll jump ahead just a little bit to give people a reason why we're talking to you. One of them, other than you just being a cool guy with a lot of probably an interesting story, but you have an extra interesting story. I met you what last week or a week before, and Ron told me you
Hmm.
walked across America. So is that was that
Yes, that's
that's an
correct.
accurate
From
description?
August, yeah, yeah, from August 29th, 2023 to August 8th, 2024, I spent 346 days, 3,375 miles of walking. Um, walking across America. I did take some rides, so I wasn't a strict purist, but my goal to say that I walked across America was to at least do the shortest portion, which is equivalent to about 2,400 miles from Savannah, Georgia to San Diego, California. That's 2,400 miles. So I wanted to at least put that many miles on my shoes. But as I can explain a little bit later, my route
Yeah,
was not west. So I added a few more miles of north and south fluctuation.
sure. Yeah, no, that's quite an achievement. But I think we got to, having dropped that pin, so everybody, that's where we're going with this story. I think we got to lead up to it somehow. Ron, feel free to pitch in any time. I'm just gonna pepper
Well,
him with
no,
questions.
actually,
But
here's the
go ahead.
thing. No, you're doing a great job because you don't know anything.
Right, I don't.
That's good. I
In
like
more
it.
ways than one, that's true.
Well, so so what would be the next?
Well, I want to know. We
Yeah.
leave seminary. We'll just follow the linear. We'll follow the breadcrumbs here. So you, how old are you when you decide that the priesthood isn't for you, and what did you do next?
Yeah, I graduated minor seminary and undergraduate with a degree in philosophy in 2017. So I would have been 23, 24. I did 5 years of college. And then from there, I felt very called to serve in missionary work. So I encountered a charismatic Catholic missionary organization that I saw extreme fruit in the lives of the students and just like God doing some really amazing miracles. And there's a quote by John Paul II that says that uh, makes a man makes a true gift of himself. Um, yeah, when he desires when his desires are I'm completely botching this right now, but
That's it.
uh the a true gift of oneself is when your desires are in line. And so I saw a desire to serve God, particularly in this way, and it was something that was really fascinating to me. So I decided to go into to St. Paul's Outreach, which is the name of the missionary organization that I was a part of for 3 years. And they are a national organization, so they serve on college campuses throughout the United States. And so when I joined them, I was, in Minnesota, but then I got sent to New Jersey, South Orange, New Jersey, to Seton Hall's campus.
And so you had a kind of campus ministry as a mission, like as a
Yep,
mission.
yeah, it was pretty robust. It was It was pretty robust over there. So they had a campus minister. They had different organizations that help serve the poor. They had liturgical ministers. They had a pro-life branch. I was more along the lines of the ones that were going out. So my particular role as a missionary in SPO was to bring person to a people. So there was a group of college students there that were living in community, a common life together, even living in the same households, doing chores together, praying together each morning. And my goal was to connect students with those students that were already living that life. So going out onto college campuses, forming friendships, and inviting people into this really good thing.
What do you consider yourself still a charismatic Catholic?
Yeah, yeah, very much so. I'm no longer a part of any particular charismatic Catholic community, but I think the base definition for a charismatic is somebody who has experienced the Spirit of God and has a deep devotion for the third person of the Trinity. So I have a pretty wide
Hmm.
definition of that. Like you don't even like some
Right.
people say you have to speak in tongues or whatever. I don't,
Right.
yeah, having an encounter with the third person of Trinity and devotion to him, I think is what makes you a charismatic.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So you're how long did you do that? Excuse me.
I did that for 3 years. So it finished up
Okay.
right. Yeah, it was kind of tragic how it finished up because if the last year I was already I already had kind of discerned in February 2020 that I was leaving New Jersey. And there was another thing that happened around February of 2020 that shut all the universities down and everything like that. So I didn't really
Right.
get to say goodbye in a way that I would hope to. But
Huh.
yeah, so from the fall year of 2017 to the end of 2020 was when I served out in New Jersey. And that there were some redemption moments like I all of the guys that were living in that household in 2020 decided to stay there. It was a large house, so there were 12, 14 of us all in this household living together, and that was how I spent COVID, which was such
Wow.
a blessing. I mean, to play 5-on-5 basketball in the middle of COVID is kind of unheard of, but we were all together
Right.
quarantined, so um, that was a blessing in and of itself.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So out of New Jersey, you what did you do? Go home to Indiana, or what? What was your next step?
Yeah, yeah. I had a desire to get closer to family, and I also, a priest from when I was in seminary, reached out. He was in Muncie, Indiana, where I'm currently at right now. Um, and he was looking for a campus minister. So when I was in New Jersey, I was a missionary and I was kind of boots on the ground, making relationships one on one, focusing on student interaction and trying to bring people in. Whereas when I was here, I was kind of over the whole college ministry. So more planning, retreats, formation. How do we encourage a whole community of students to know Christ and to follow him more closely? So I took that position in the fall of 2020, and I was here for 2 years. I did that for the 2020-2021 school year and then the 21-22 school year. And that's when I met Ron. It was probably, I don't know, early 21. And we hit it off right away. We talked, we both just talked for, an hour or so about, he's like, wait, you're Catholic and, you experience the gifts and, he's like, oh, we're brothers. And I was like, hell yeah, we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe was he was like the lifeline. I'm like, wait a second, you're cool. So, all right, you believe it? All right. It was my first real charismatic Catholic encounter. I'm like, wait a second. On the other side of the fence? All right, this could be cool. So anyhow.
Cool. Okay, so you mentioned that you're part of your definition of a charismatic Catholic is someone who's encountered and or has a devotion to the third person of the Trinity, presumably you meaning the Holy Spirit. What typically we call
Yes, yes, sir.
and we Protestant heathen call the Holy Spirit, or just because we don't really refer to the Trinity in first, second, and third. I mean, it's there. The words are there. It's just not commonly used. I can't remember last time I heard the
Mm.
Holy Spirit mentioned as I can't remember the last time I've heard in a Protestant service anybody mention the first, second, or third person of the Trinity. Just
Eh,
in a
eh,
casual conversation, but it rolled right off your tongue so easily, Joe. It seems like it's like you've you're philosophically trained and theologically trained, so that maybe that's why it came so easy to you.
I
Because
do
it's
most of the time call him the Holy Spirit. I don't know
oh,
why I
okay.
said it that way, but I guess
Oh,
I
okay.
do.
Well,
And
it sounded really smooth.
I'm not theologically trained. I'm not theologically
Oh,
trained, just philosophically trained.
okay. Well, you
But
sounded
yeah,
very
I dabble
sophisticated
in
saying that.
theology.
So, oh, okay, okay.
That's probably, yeah, I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, it's like the Holy Ghost with your pinky out. It's like the third person of the Trinity.
That's right. Yeah, you're drinking the tea.
All right. So, COVID, the worst of COVID's over. You're back home. You once the lockdowns loosen up, and you can't spend your time playing basketball with your buddies. What's next?
Yeah, so after that, I felt that there's kind of a twofold thing that made me move to Columbus, Ohio. The first one was that I felt God calling me out of a quote unquote professional Christianity. So I had a deep conversion. I was an atheist in college at IU my freshman year, and then I had an encounter with God in between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And then in my junior year of college, I started studying for the priesthood. So I pretty much went from no faith at all to I'm going to be a Catholic priest. And so I did 3 years of that, 3 years of missionary work, 2 years of ministry. And I just felt this like tug on my heart from God of like, what would it look like for you to be a Christian if your paycheck wasn't also involved with it? You know, like if you weren't a professional Christian, if you weren't doing this like with everything, could I give my life fully to God without it like externally being everything as well, you know, like working a
Mhm.
regular job or something like that? Because most people are called to be in the world and not of the world, you know. Ministry
Mhm.
is a particular calling, and it's beautiful, and I have nothing against it, but God was calling me out of it. Really, I think mostly to deepen my sonship. That, you know, it's not so much what you do for God, but it's who you are. And I think he was calling me into my beloved sonship more and more. And a way of doing that was to take a step away from full-time ministry. And then also I started dating a girl in Columbus, Ohio. So we had been dating for about 6 months, and so I moved out there, and went to EMT school and went to firefighting school, and the relationship didn't end up working out. But I did have some friends out there as well in Columbus, Ohio. I was there from 2022 to 2023, so I lived in Columbus for just about a year, and I was a part of a covenant charismatic Catholic community. That's a lot of C's, but it's called Cornerstone, is the name of that covenant charismatic Catholic community. And yeah, that was just a wonderful is the same spiritual DNA of SPO, St. Paul's Outreach. It's all formed out of the sword of the Spirit, which is, I'm sorry if I'm getting into the weeds too quick, but
No, no,
it's
you're
a
you're fine.
community of communities
This is good.
um, within within it's there are some ecumenical groups, but it's majority Catholic. Um, and it's a way of life that was set out around the same time or just shortly after the Pentecostal revival in the United States. And so it was like this small group of Catholics that was like similar kind of move as the Pentecostal movement. And then this particular group formed out of it. I don't have the history 100%, so I could be saying some things that are not exactly right. But that's kind of the gist
Now, is this
of
like
that the
an
sword of the
intentional
spirit,
community?
cornerstone.
Sorry to overtalk you. Was this like an intentional community?
Yes, yep,
So you're living together?
yep. So I was yeah, so I actually a family of a friend of a friend, they had five kids under seven and an extra room. So I stayed with them, and that was a wonderful experience to see family life in a new way. But then I had a small group of men that I would meet with every other week. We would meet as a large community every month on Sundays, and then on Saturdays we would celebrate the Lord's Day. So yeah, it was an integrated, you know, like people still lived different places and things like that, but it was integrated that we were trying to live life together. And so it was very beautiful, and they're thriving right now, which is great.
Interesting. Um, how do you, what's required of you in terms of participating, just at the economic level, even? Do you have to contribute a certain amount of money every month to carry your weight? Or is it, how do they keep it rolling? You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. You cut out for a little bit,
Oh,
but I think you asked what's required.
mhm.
So I was particularly, I'm trying to remember the terminology of it. I was an affiliate of this community, and then the next step is underway, and then the third step is uh, fully committed. So an affiliate is kind of a year by year thing. It's like, hey, come check us out, see what's up, see if you like it. It's not for everybody. Underway is, okay, I've checked this out. I want to go through this 1 to 3 year process of learning what it is to be fully committed or fully involved in the community. And then once you're fully committed, you kind of make a decision to be in that particular place with those particular people until God says so otherwise. So for most people, that's the rest of their life. But it's kind of assumed that if you were ever to leave the community or not be associated with those people, and or leave like the particular city that you're in, that would not only be a decision that you and your family would make, but it would be a decision that would be opened up to the whole community where everyone is discerning what God is saying and why you're leaving and how that's moving. So it's not like you can never leave, but it is a pretty big deal to leave, and it's the whole community is involved in that process. So it's kind of like I'm in this until God says so otherwise.
So
And
how
so
many?
with
How
that
many?
third level, I never, with that third level, I don't know all the particulars of what it means to be involved in that, but I do know there is some sort of tithing and some sort of time commitment of time, talent, and treasure and things like that. So,
Gotcha. We've got a little lag. Sorry about that. So we'll just have to live with it. Um,
oh, that's all right.
what? Uh, any idea percentages of how many people are? I assume most come into the yearly sort of thing. I mean, I would think that it's a big deal to make the leap into that third category at least. And I can't remember what you called them. Underway and
Yep,
what's
it's affiliate, underway, and then fully committed.
fully committed. So
Yeah. I don't know what the percentage is. That's a good question, but I couldn't give you
okay, how
a
many people are we
a
talking
reasonable
about
answer.
total in the community that you saw or interacted with? What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
I mean, maybe I'm sorry, I don't have a good my guess would be like somewhere between 50 and 100 families.
Wow.
Um
Okay, 1,500
so
families.
and
Okay.
all of them stereotypic 50 to 100, yeah. And a lot of them stereotypically they're all Catholic, so they have a lot of kids too. So if you count the
Right.
kids, it's a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you spend a year? How long were you with them?
Yep. Yes.
Then what
Yes,
happens?
from 2020 to 2020. So, like Ron was saying, I took a trip to Israel when I was a missionary um, at Seton Hall. So, for spring break one year in the college cycle, a group of religious brothers and sisters took students and missionaries to the Holy Land. And it was really at the Holy Land where this is 2018 or spring of 2018 when I went to the Holy Land. And during that time, the Lord just put it on my heart of walking. Like I saw how he went around the Sea of Galilee, and I was struck to the heart at how small the Sea of Galilee was,
Mhm.
and the scope of Jesus's particular mission just seems so human. And for me,
Ah,
growing up in the church, having this more industrial complex under like the industrial complex understanding of ministry. It's like, how do we scale this? How do we make it more global? How do we make it more reachable to other people? It seemed to me that Jesus was completely unconcerned with that. He just had his 12, and he would be moving slowly throughout these villages and towns, having personal interactions with people, and that changed the world. He wanted to start a worldwide revolution, and he was unconcerned with scalability, and he really just walked around this lake. And it made me think about my life as a Christian and having to do that. And I, ever since then, could really never shake the idea of doing some sort of walk or walking pilgrimage. And then as I looked into it more, over the course of 5 years, because again, it was spring of 2018 when this first entered my mind, and then I finally did it in summer of 2023. Um, the tradition of the Catholic Church, people like Saint Ignatius of Loyola or Saint Francis of Assisi, the pilgrimage aspect in the tradition is so strong, and especially in America, it's coming back a little bit within the Catholic Church. There's a couple of things that are happening that are really cool, but that is not really something that has been strong in the past 200 years, but it is in the tradition. So as I was thinking about this, I'm like, well, Jesus did it. Like there are other people who have done it. Maybe I'm not that crazy for trying to do something like this. So my first thought was to just go from place to place, like maybe Montreal to St. Paul. And then that didn't work out. And then I thought about just walking across New Jersey, and then that didn't work out. It just wasn't the right time. God wasn't moving in the right way. And then finally, everything just kind of clicked in early 2023 that something that I could do. And at that point, my discernment and my conversation with the Lord was like, if I don't do this, I might be unfaithful. Like it kind of got into that. I've been thinking about this so long. It's been on my heart for so long. I gotta at least try. If I get out there in 3 days, I'm starving and, derelict, then, I did, at least I tried it, like, okay, it wasn't what God wanted me to do, but
Okay.
at that point, it had just been such a burden that I really wanted to give it a shot.
Okay. What happened to the screen, Ron? Did you notice what
Yeah,
you goofing
Joe,
around?
I don't. While you were
A little Fourth
saying
of July
that,
action.
yeah, all right, that was perfect timing, by the way. I don't know. I'm gonna
What?
just call that for the Lord for 300. Welcome to the House of Woo.
Okay.
Um,
Um,
I don't think I did anything on my end. Maybe I
I didn't
did.
see you
I'm
do
not
anything. I
I
don't
sure.
know
didn't
what.
do anything. That's just hilarious.
That is hilarious. Go back to the tape, folks.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. All right. Um, so what is things click, as you said. It came together. What does day one look like?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
you
day
step
one.
out, where
I
you start out someplace. Let's maybe go back before day one. What does the night before day one look like?
Yeah, so I take a bus. My mom drops me off in tears in Lafayette, Indiana, and I take a bus to
There's
Newark,
a,
New Jersey. Uh,
that's a discussion in
I,
itself, I would think.
I
yeah.
didn't
Mom,
know that one.
Yeah. She had plenty of she knew it was coming. I wasn't just like, "Hey mom, I'm gonna take a bus and I'll see you in a year." Uh, we had talked about it a lot, but it was still very hard for her, and she's a holy woman for being supportive in the midst of all of this. So yeah, I take a bus from Lafayette, Indiana to Newark, New Jersey, and I have my buddy Elizer pick me up from the Greyhound bus station, and I stay with him for about 3 or 4 days. Spend all the money that I need to. Like I came, to New Jersey with a couple $100, and so we had some steaks with some friends, and I lived out there for 3 years, so I wanted to see a few people before I started. And the August 28th, I'm staying at my friend Elzer's house, and a couple other my friends are there as well. And I'm trying to convince them to walk the first day with me. So my friend Elzer and my friend Brendan, they walked the first day with me from the Statue of Liberty in Jersey City, New Jersey, to the SPO Men's House where I lived for 3 years. It was about a 15-mile walk with a short train ride over the Passaic River. Um, and so the first day looks like my friend Nate drove the three of us out to Lady Liberty, and we got as close to her as we could without crossing any water. And then, the first couple steps, we say a prayer. I send a picture to my mom telling her that I'm starting, and we're starting to walk down in Liberty State Park. And my friend Brendan is singing New York, New York, and we're moving towards John the Baptist, St. John the Baptist Catholic Church in Jersey City, New Jersey for 12 o'clock Mass. It was very important for me to start on the day that I did because it was one of the feast days of St. John the Baptist. There's two of them in the liturgical calendar, and August 29th is the feast of his beheading. Um, so I started on that day as a tribute to him because he is my patron saint and just a huge example and inspiration to me in my walk with Jesus. So I really, and it was kind of cool that there was a St. John the Baptist Catholic Church within walking distance of where I started. I started at the Statue of Liberty for three reasons. The first reason was
Uh-oh.
He'll be back. Just give him a second.
Yep. You froze up on us, Joe.
Lord, heal the internet. In Jesus' name.
It's been a touchy. He moved too much. StreamYard hates that when we have a bad connection.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
We'll have to do a part 2.
yeah, no,
Get Joe over to the church and we can finish this up.
I know.
Are you guys? Where's he at? He's in Columbus
He's
right
at-
now.
He's at home.
Okay.
Yeah, in Indiana.
Oh, in Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wonder.
We know how good your internet is at home.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. So he's gonna dial back up.
No worries.
Yeah. So
What do you think? So what do you met? When did you meet him? After the trek or before?
No, it was right before.
It was before.
Actually,
yeah.
I'm part of the reason. It was. I came in right when he came back from Columbus. Well, actually, he met him before Columbus. Then he went to Columbus, and on his way back, he had a house that he bought,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't want it. He was kind of hesitant to leave it empty for a year and a half.
Right.
And at the same time, he was thinking about the walk. I needed a new place to move. My rent got jacked up, so I'm like, I'm out of here. And he goes, well, I need somebody to rent my place if I'm going to do this, and I need the money. And I'm like, well, I need the place to rent, and I'd be more than happy to help facilitate this. So it was one thing after another that clicked. He hit the road, and I got a house.
And then he got back. When did he come back? He told me it was a year or so.
It's just been recently. It's been.
Okay.
Let me think. It would within 6 months.
It sounded like it was. Was it from August to August?
Yeah, it was a 1-year trip, and so I think he got back. He hit the West Coast August-ish, and then just kind of decompressed back into the world.
Do you want to text him and make sure he's doing okay?
Yeah, let me call
Tell
him.
him we're not quitting. We're still waiting for him to come back in.
I bet you it's just the phone. It's a phone issue. Let's see what's. Okay.
I will play. Let's see.
Some branding.
I'll play some music.
All right.
Let's see here. As soon as my mouse cooperates. All right, we got Joe back, and then we'll take.
Hey, sorry about that.
No worries, man. Okay.
Hey, your video's a lot better.
Yeah, I'm trying this thing. I don't know how long it's gonna last. Hopefully it lasts more. I went through my phone and on the computer, so
Okay.
hopefully this is better.
Cool.
All right. So where were we? Yeah.
Statue of
New York.
Liberty.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
3 reasons: praying for liberty for the country. Secondly, that's where my ancestors immigrated from, or immigrated to from Sicily. They went through Ellis Island, so it's kind of cool to start my walk across America where they started their walk in America. And then the third one was, just practically, I had friends in Jersey, so I didn't want to make it harder than I needed to. So that's those are the 3 reasons why I started there.
So day one, mom's crying, and you have a friend or two walk with you to get you started. So, what's the first night like?
Yeah, so the first night was I went to bed very early. We walked about 15 miles and I was exhausted. My pack weighed about 65 pounds. And I had trained for stuff, but there's really no way to train for it. You just have to do it. Um, and I was living at the house that I'd lived in for 3 years, and I was sleeping there. And I woke up the next morning so sore that I had to ask the guys if I could stay for another night because I didn't feel like I could walk the next day. So that was really a moment of surrender to God. I'm like, all right, God, I'm trying to walk across this whole country and I can't even walk 2 days in a row. Like this is gonna I'm gonna need to I'm gonna need your help through all of this. And so yeah, I rested up that day, especially my hips because you're carrying that pack. Most of it is on your hips, so they were really bruised and sore. Um, but I had, I felt good enough on that third day to move along down the line. And I had planned the first two stops. So my boss, when I was in New Jersey, he lived about 15 miles from that men's house. So I had planned that I was going to stay with him, and then from after that, I didn't know where I was going to stay. I just I wanted to get a kind of ease into it a little bit and know that I had some spots from there. And so that was those first 2 days were planned out.
Um, at what point do you start worrying that this was a mistake? Or did you ever
Yeah.
hit that point?
Yeah. I think I was in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, and this is probably, I don't know, a week and a half in or so. And friend of a friend. So my boss, he had a bunch of connections along the way, which was helpful. That one of his friends let me stay when I was in Bridgewater, New Jersey, and then in Bridgewater, I met a priest in Three Rivers, and he let me stay. And then the guy in Bridgewater had a connection with a guy in Collegeville, so I'm going to Collegeville, Pennsylvania. This is like a week and a half in, and I call up the guy, and I brought two pairs of shoes, and I was walking in my tennis shoes the first week and a half, and I decided that it was a nice day out. I was going to switch over to my Chacos. And I had worn the Chacos a little bit, but I didn't really break them in. So it's like 8 miles in the Chacos or so, and my feet are bleeding. I look down and I'm like, oh, this is not good. So put on the regular shoes that I had been wearing that were doing fine. And I call up this guy that I got his number from another friend and was like, hey, I'm in college. So where's your house? And he's like, oh, I live in Eagleville, which is like the other way. So like I had already passed Eagleville, and I'm in
You're okay.
Collegeville, and he
Back
lives in
up. Just
Eagleville.
slow down. Back up for a minute because you roboted on
Yeah.
us. So you
Oh,
call
okay.
up the guy. You've changed out of your feet are bleeding, but you've changed back to your regular shoes, and then you went robot on us. Can you tell
Oh,
us again
okay.
what happened
Um,
there?
yeah. So he actually lives in Eagleville, which is 3 miles from where I was. So I had already kind of passed it, and I had to go
Oh,
northeast back to this guy's house. Um, so,
okay.
I'm
Ouch.
already kind of struggling with my feet and everything, and it's like, yeah, it's up this major highway, 3 miles, and there was like no shoulder on it. So it was like a 4-lane road. Traffic's going 55 miles an hour. It's uphill, and my feet hurt, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, I made it across New Jersey. Was that good enough? Like, I'm done. And to add a little bit of insult to injury, I was walking across these construction workers, and they're like, "Hey, where are you going?" And I was like, California, and they're like, well, you're going the wrong way. And I was like, I know, but there's this guy I got to go see. And so it's like, I'm hurting. And then these construction workers are like, you idiot, you're going the wrong way. But I got there and he was super hospitable. This guy, his name's, I think that was Dave Guerin. He was a great, great guy. And he helped me out. And so there was a moment there. I was sitting on the steps of Lower Providence Baptist Church at the top of this hill, and I was only like a half mile from his house, but just dead tired, feet are hurting, and I'm just like, Lord, is this it? Like, am I done? Is this the end of it? And then pretty much right after that, I called him, and he's like, oh, dude, you're so close. You're like 10 minutes away. So I finally mustered the strength to get there, and it was helpful that his wife had made dinner and they had a bed and a shower, and it's like, well, what am I going to do sitting on these steps? Like, I might as well, either way, I'm going to get to his house because that's the best option. So
Interesting. Interesting that they didn't offer to come pick you up.
yeah, at that point I was kind of still a purist. I was like, no, I need to walk everything, and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
even
that
if
was
yeah,
your
yeah,
fault.
yeah, more or less, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you get up the next morning, and what then? I mean, how did you
Yeah,
take a
so
break, how to recuperate, or did you just head back out?
my feet were
What's
feeling
kind of
pretty
how does your
good.
morning start? What is I mean, there's a lot of questions buzzing through my head because it's like, part of it's like,
Yeah,
how do
yeah.
you start the morning? What gets you up and gets you out? And is it like important that you get out early? If you wait too long, it's like kills your day. Or I mean, just yeah,
Yeah,
help us through that for a
it
minute.
all really depends on the weather. It
Okay.
all really depended on the weather. So like when it was really cold out, the first thing I did was get up and start moving because that was the best way to stay
Warm up.
warm. So like
Right.
no breakfast, no prayer in the morning, just out of the sleeping bag. Fingers are frosted. You're getting your tent put together. It's an icicle because your condensation is breathing on it, and it's freezing on the outside of the tent. These are the really cold days. You get it all in, and then you just move until the sun comes up, and then you're out, and then once the sun hits, you can sit down, make a little bit of instant coffee, get some breakfast in you, maybe say a few prayers, and then shed a layer and keep going. When it was really hot out, it was very similar. Like you get up because it's cool out,
Hmm.
and you just go as soon as you can because when it's real hot out, you don't want to be walking at noon, and you eat at noon. You get a little like something quick in the morning as you're walking, and say your prayers in the sun or in the shade when it's down like that. Sometimes I would stay at churches, and my personal rule was if the pastor wasn't there, I would ask the other boss, and usually he was okay with it. But even though when I did ask God if I could stay at a church without anybody else's permission, I usually tried to get up and leave early so people didn't see me. So that's on those mornings I had a particular impetus, like get up before the sun and kind of stealth camp it. And every once in a while I did that on the side of the road too, but I never stayed on anybody's private property without permission unless it was a church, and I would always try to ask the church for permission before I just like assumed. And there were where I got cops called on me at churches and stuff, and like I'm trespassing, so yeah, technically they can. But I figured, no one's gonna kill me for staying on a church property. The worst they're gonna do is ask me to leave. So kind of hedging my bets with that. But even when I did that, I would get up early and sometimes when I mean, the vast majority of the beginning of the trip, I would find people out in their front yard and I would ask them, I would tell them what I'm doing, walking across the country, praying for the country. And I would ask them if I could camp in their yard for the night. And I would ask them if there was a particular time that they wanted me out in the morning. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm leaving for work at 6. I don't really want you here with my wife and kids around when I'm not here. I'll let you stay, but you got to be out by 6. It's like, awesome. Thank you so much. Other times it's like, no, like whenever you want to come in for breakfast, like come on in, stuff like that. So it kind of just depended on the situation every day.
What was your let's
I would
best
one
of?
one other
Oh, go
thing
ahead.
that kind of one other thing that kind of made my pace good or bad is a lot of times I would plan out if I could go to mass. The big part of my desire walking across the country is to go to mass as often as possible. So like a lot of times when I got up in the day, I'd be like, okay, I have 12 miles until a 5 p.m. mass in the next town. So that would kind of dictate my pace as well. Try to hit that, and that provided a lot of structure to my walk actually too, because otherwise I didn't really have any goals. So that particular having those times, it was helpful for me to have some structure.
So that you have that bad day, with the feet, and so how do you wake up the next day, and what'd you do?
Yeah. So they actually drove me to the nearest Catholic church, and I got to go to mass there, and they had an adoration. So I just prayed for the whole morning. And it was a little bit of a struggle in my heart because I knew it was going to be really hot and muggy that day. But that was just one of those things where it's like, I need this time to be with God and to get my strength back. And I just walked in the heat of the day that day. And I only did, like 3 or 4 miles that day because my feet were still hurting. But um, so yeah, I just went to mass, to prayer, back to like the root of my mission, and then just like took it easy on my body because that was still the beginning, and I still was neat. I was still should have taken it easy on myself, and a lot
Right,
of times I did. I learned that real quick. Like don't
right.
like this is a marathon, not a sprint. Like don't push it. Like if you're hurting, stop. Because when you don't,
Absolutely.
it doesn't go well.
Right. So, do you have any days that stick out to you that are either the best days or worst days, or did it become just a routine and the days meld into each other?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a routine to it, but there were definitely some highlights. I would say that the craziest thing, the biggest God moment, the best day was in Whitesboro, Texas, about 1,700 miles in, um, just after Easter. It was the Wednesday after Easter Sunday, and I come up to a guy, and he's got this huge cart, and I'm like, that's either a very sophisticated homeless person or he's doing something similar that I'm doing. And he comes up to me and is like, "Hey, are you Backpacker Joe?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm Backpacker Joe." Because in Louisiana, I kind of got Facebook famous. There's like a group with 8,000
Oh,
people on it and stuff, and that was a
okay.
whole nother story. But um, yeah, so like I was from at that point I was familiar with random people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, are you Backpacker Joe?" I was like, "Yeah,"
Okay.
and he's like, "Hey, my name is Elijah. I'm also walking across America praying for the country." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, no way!" I've been praying for this since Tennessee because like I was really like praying for brotherhood and hoping just because it's a long walk, like some brotherhood would have been great. And
Yeah.
so I was like super overjoyed and I got really excited. And then I had a thought come into my head of like, oh crap, he could be going east. So the first question I asked him was like, "You going east or west?" He's like, "I'm going west." And I was like, "Oh, good, let's walk." And so yeah, we talked about our missions that day and just the incredible similarity of what God called us to separately, and then He brought us together in Whitesboro, and we walked the last 4 months from Whitesboro to Los Angeles together. Um, and some of the similarities were that I started with no money, never asked for money, no credit card, no debit card, to invite the spirit of the sending of the 72. Go therefore and preach the gospel, take no money, no second tunic, um, heal the sick, cast out demons, proclaim that the kingdom of God is at hand. That was a really big guiding verse for me. I did take a second tunic and a giant backpack, but I did want to. I felt like God was asking me to take no money, um, because there were 5 idols that I was praying against for our country, things that I would hope that we would turn away from and turn our heart back to God. And throughout the walk and at the beginning of the walk, even, it was very clear to me that it wasn't something that I was like holier than thou condescending to, whereas like, oh, like America, figure your stuff out because I got it all figured out. Like
Hmm.
all of these things are things that I've struggled with in the past or like are currently struggling with. And the 5 things were money, attention, sex, status, and self-preservation. So yeah, it was very important for me as I'm praying against the idol of money to not carry money. With attention or distraction, sex and status, all of those things, they are really prevalent online, and with a smartphone, you have access to all of that. So I wanted to, again, like, uh, rid myself of that to embody what I was praying for. And then the last one, self-preservation, is very much aided by technology. So again, with the smartphone, I wanted to like take away agency so that I could really show that God is doing this thing. So like I didn't have Google Maps. I would be reliant upon other people telling me directions or printing off directions for me, stuff like that. And so one of the things that was really cool when I met this other guy was that he was praying for the same things. He called them a little bit different things, but
Hmm.
he called it money, uh, what did he say? Money, fame instead of status,
Hmm.
sex, popularity or entertainment instead of the attention or distraction, and then power or control instead of self-preservation. So when we're like on that first day on the road talking about this, my mind is just like firing on all cylinders, and he isn't taking any money either, and it's like God just like this again, that third person of the Trinity, the Holy Ghost. He inspired me and him separately, and that's like this was just like in charismatic circles you have that confirmation of the Spirit, and so like I was kind of like 90% sure when I started that God was calling me to this, and then when I met him, I'm like, what are the chances in Texas, let alone America, that another guy is doing the exact same thing at the exact same time in the exact same place for the exact same reasons, and we're going the exact same way? Like, it's just, that's like, thank you, God. Like now I get it. Like you're bigger than, you know. So
Well, it would
that
also
was, yeah, that was
be,
by far.
as I recall, on the along the route you followed, that's where it starts getting this the spaces between towns and people spread out. I mean, it gets the population
Yes,
thins out in the West considerably,
yes,
and
absolutely.
so you're moving through a
Yeah,
much more densely populated part of the country as long as you're east of the Mississippi, at least, and then it just
absolutely.
starts to thin out until you're into the desert, the low plains. Yeah.
Yep.
What
Yeah. I'm getting a message on here that says recording error. I don't know
oh,
if that's gonna cause problems or not, but
it may or may not. Well, I don't. It's recorded on my end too, so I'm not. The reason we record
okay.
locally for you is the idea is StreamYard will the technology will somewhat patch the glitches in the signal, so it takes all the local. So
Okay.
what happens is we record everybody locally, and then we upload the local recordings to the cloud and StreamYard, and it fills in the gaps. It increases the quality supposedly of the finished product. But I think we're okay.
Okay.
I think we'll be okay. We're
Okay.
live streaming this anyway,
Yeah,
so
it was okay, awesome.
I think you'll
Yeah, it
be
was
okay.
pretty cool because all throughout okay, wonderful. Yeah, it was pretty cool to just touch on that point that you were talking about. Pretty much throughout the whole Eastern United States, people were saying like, "Man, what are you gonna do when you hit Texas?" And then I hit Texas, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't that bad." And then the Texans were telling me like, once you hit Gainesville, it's like nothing. Like Gainesville is not like after Gainesville. you're in West Texas, and it's 15, 20, 30 miles before you see a gas station in between
Exactly.
towns.
If you're
And I'm
lucky.
like, and people are like, what are you gonna? Yeah, and people are like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe get a cart or something. and and
And the weather,
Whitesboro
did
is
it
the town
cooperate
before
for you?
Gainesville.
How was the weather for you in Texas? Because
Um,
Texas is particularly
yeah,
brutal.
yeah, it was okay.
It was
Yeah,
it?
just to
No
finish what I was like,
hailstorms or anything like that?
White, uh, we
I mean,
did,
you
yeah, we did, in the panhandle of Texas, we did, at the very beginning of a tornado, we got hailed on and there were rapid winds circling, and it ended up being a supercell that turned into 53 tornadoes or something, or 17 tornadoes or something crazy like that, that decimated a bunch of towns in Oklahoma. And we were like, it touched down like 5, 10 miles east of us. So we got hailed on with all of that, but serious situation, and my heart goes out to all the people that got affected by that. And we were just kind of out in the open. Saw some lightning coming in. It kept getting faster and faster, and we knew that once we hit Amarillo, that dry line of the tornadoes, because we hit Oklahoma, Texas, like in late uh, late April, which everyone was like, "Why are you guys here right now? This is like the worst time to be here." And we're like, "Oh yeah, I don't know. Like we're here, so we might as well make the best of it."
Ron, how
But
am I
yeah, super
doing?
grateful
What
for God's
questions
protection.
what questions should I be asking
No,
him?
no, 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 no. I've already been here. I've this is fun. This
Okay.
is keep rolling.
All right.
I didn't know about the
What questions should
supercell.
I be? Well, let me ask you, Joe. What questions should I be asking you, or is there something that you would say that I wouldn't have the? I mean, is there anything about your experience that someone like me wouldn't even think about asking about or talking to you? What
Mm,
am I missing something in this discussion?
mm. No, I think the interview's been awesome so far.
Cool.
My attention's kind of drawn to your poster, and I remember the first time I saw it too. Um, was very drawn to um, that particular thing. So I might ask you, like, what interests you about
The Tolkien.
that particular saying? Yeah,
Oh, well, not all those who wander are lost.
yeah,
Um,
I like it.
yeah, I do too. I just saw it and I just really liked it, and it seemed like a big part of my own personal life story. So I've been a bit of a
Mm,
wanderer, but my experience is that I was not lost in the wandering.
yeah.
It's in my experience with Jesus, it's like he's been there the whole time, even when I am not aware. It's just he's just he keeps
Mm,
discipling, and even when you're not paying attention, he's still discipling you. That's been my experience.
mm.
We've got a question for you from Chris Howard, and I was wondering this
Yep,
too. How many pairs of shoes did you wear out?
Yeah, 8,
8, Chris.
8, yeah, 8 pairs. I
well,
would
did you ever
not
go home?
recommend. I don't know if it's because of the gravel in New Mexico, but I had a very bad experience with Saucony's. I had some good experiences with Hoka's, some good experience with Asics. Those, they say that marathon shoes last about 500 miles, and in my experience, those Asics and Hoka's lasted about 5 to 700 miles. The Saucony's only lasted like 20, 250 before they tore a hole in them. Um, in the East, when I was doing more like less road walking, I had Adidas Terrex, which is kind of like a boot sneaker combo. Those were really good. Um, yeah, so 8 pairs.
And then Chris also wants to know, did you ever go hungry?
Yeah, there were times where I had less to eat than I wanted. But the miraculous thing, so like after I met my buddy, he was even more strict than I was, and I promise I'm getting to the point. But so I never asked for money up until Whitesboro, and then, but if somebody were to say, "Hey, here's $20, I wanna bless you on your way," I would say thank you and take it as a part of God's provision. What my friend wanted to do was he wanted to go the whole way without using money at all. And so when somebody said, "Hey, here's $20, I want to bless you as you go along your way," he would say, "Thank you so much. But as a testament to God's provision over and above money, we don't want to use money the whole way." So we would only accept what we needed. And that being said, we put that limit on our agency, hopefully for the glory of God. Um, and yeah, we never missed a meal the whole time. There were times where I wouldn't eat because I had to get somewhere, like to a mass, or there's like a particular place where people said that they would house us, so we just like walked through a meal, but we
Mm.
never did not have a meal to eat. I would say the closest we got was in Tuba City, Arizona. We had two family-sized bag of chips, and so like I ate the jalapeno uh, kettle chips, and he ate the Doritos because he didn't like spicy food, and I love jalapenos. Um, Except maybe not as much after the last couple of days. Ron knows about that, but so yeah, we had those two bags of chips for dinner, and then in the morning we had instant mashed potatoes and instant hot chocolate. So on Sunday morning we had a breakfast of instant mashed potatoes and instant hot chocolate, and then the last thing that we had to eat for lunch was a half a cup of dried beans, and that's all that we had. So like when we
Mm.
prayed the Our Father every day, um, we prayed, give us this day our daily bread, not only for us but for all those that were hungry. We prayed that extra hard that day, and
Mm.
this wonderful lady from a Lutheran church asked if we needed anything, and we expressed our need for food, and she said, "Well, I'll take you to the grocery store and you can get whatever you want." So we went from no food to a week and a half worth of food. Our cooler was completely full, and we were able to. And she gave us she let us stay at the church and use the grill and bought us steaks that night. So we went from instant mashed potatoes and instant hot chocolate for breakfast to steak for dinner. So yeah, a couple of times I got hungry, but never missed a meal because I didn't have food, if that makes sense. They're
Yeah.
burning like 4,000 calories a day. I
Yeah,
could,
you are. Yeah, yeah,
al
definitely.
always
Easy.
eating.
There's so many more questions I could ask. But I'll kind of wrap this part up and maybe open it up to people who want to ask questions, and Ron fill in with some questions of his own. But what is spiritually? Where are you at now? What did this do to you?
Yeah, one thing that I did think about, that I think would be apropos to this, from what Ron has told me about this community and things like that, is my buddy who I walked with. He was non-denominational Protestant, and he was one of the things that he was praying for was for church unity and how it grieves the Holy Spirit that we're so divided. And I think it was a beautiful experience of church unity. It's like a beginning of a joke, like a Protestant and a Catholic start walking across the country together. But it was a beautiful experience of that ecumenism that we're all searching for. And I'm very much of the opinion, this is just something that God has brought me in prayer. It could be helpful to some, it could be hurtful to others. Take it with a grain of salt. But we got so built up in the church, um, that we started to build our own Tower of Babel. And this is like mostly a critique of the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages of like, okay, God, we got our structure. Like, you can just go sit over there now. We don't need you anymore. Thank you so much. And what did God do when the first people built up a tower to heaven saying that we no longer need you? We've become so centralized that we're a part of this, is that he looked down and he dismantled Babel and he made them start speaking different languages. And what was the restoration of the Tower of Babel? It was Pentecost, that they all started to
Mm.
speak each other's languages again. So as we experience this disunity in the body, I think that a reliance on God and a recognition that He is the one that satisfies apart from any kind of structure or religion. I do believe fully that the Catholic Church has the fullness of the truth, but it does have faults as well. So in this new era of unity, I really think that we have to lead with humility and understand that it is the Spirit of God that brought the unity from the first Babel. And as we experience all of us speaking different languages and thinking about different theologies and, just speaking different languages, the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of God is going to allow us to come together. And this was in the experience of the walk between me and my brother. He allowed us to start to speak the same language. And so that was just a really beautiful experience. We'd go to Catholic mass on Saturday evenings, both of us, and then we would both go to a Protestant service on Sunday morning. So that was, I just got to experience so many different denominations and a whole different side of the Christian church that I didn't know exist. I had been to some Protestant churches before I met my buddy, but you name it, I've probably been there. And one thing that Ron particularly loves when I say is that I love Baptists. Like, they're just awesome. They're like, everyone was generous, but like, if you needed a shower and a hot meal and someone to call you sweetheart, like, Baptists for sure. Like, just the hospitality. I experienced a lot of hospitality from every denomination, and I experienced some hostility from most denominations, but far and away, like, the people that would invite us into their church or into their home or for a shower or for a meal or just like really go above and beyond, it just seemed like the Baptists were there every time.
Nice. Well, that's good to hear.
That one surprised me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, Joe, what'd you learn on your trip? And he looks at me. First thing I love Baptists. I'm like, okay.
That's funny. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Ron, anything
But to
else?
answer your
What
other
should I
question
ask?
about,
Yes, go. Please.
to answer your other question about like spiritually, where am I at now? I think at the beginning, I was pretty disillusioned with the state of America, pretty entitled and also just ungrateful for everything that we've been handed on in society. And yeah, I saw all the negative and everything, and it's still there. Like, we still have problems. There's still things that need to change. Um, but as Ron and I, it's become kind of like a house mantra, like, hey guys, like, there's soup. Like, like, things aren't that bad. Like, there's soup.
I was
It's
just
like,
about to
because
ask
I
you. I
didn't
was
have any
about to tell
access.
you. You got to tell them.
Yeah, I didn't have access to the news. I didn't know like the latest thing that was making the world collapse or anything like that. I didn't understand the political problems that were happening. All that was just above my head. And like, I'm out in the cold and I got a tent and there's warm soup and it's like, I'm happy. Like, there's soup.
You got to
You
back
guys, I
up.
don't know if you guys know this, but there's soup.
You got to tell them. You got to tell them the real story behind that. So now, I told Joe, if he ever gets sick or needs prayer, to hit me up. Just tell me to pray. And Joe hits me up. He goes, I think I'm getting. He goes, no, I'm sick. Like, you were not in a good way. Is that right? During that time?
Yeah.
So, see, you can
Virginia, I
give
got
them
Giardia.
give them the context of soup, because Mark will enjoy this. Like, you were not in a good way, and
Yeah, so this is probably the worst day that the worst day on the trip was when I was in Virginia and I got Giardia. So I started waking up that day not feeling very good. I also got stung by a yellow jacket in the neck. I got lost, and I got dehydrated really bad. And through like the story of God providing. I had already set up a work for stay at a hostel. So along the Appalachian Trail, they have these places called hostels where you can stay. Usually you pay them money, but I didn't have enough money to stay at this particular hostel. So I asked them, hey, can I work and stay there for a couple of days or a day? And they said, yeah, you can split some wood for this lady named Bunny. I was like, awesome. I'd love to do that. Thank you so much. This is a couple days before I got sick. So the day after I got sick, I call him. I'm like, hey, I'm sick. I don't know exactly what I have. If you don't want me to stay, I understand. But if I can stay, can I stay until I get better? And then I'll split as much wood as you need. And so that particular experience for me really stripped me of this kind of entitlement or this disillusionment with society. Because I think before that, I was in my head like the structures of this world are all corrupt and it's all bad and like there's really no redeemable aspect of what we have in America. It's built on, greed and avarice and wrath and competition and all these things. And like sure, maybe most of it is like not conceding that, but when you're sick in the woods and it's cold and you're dehydrated and you don't have water and you can't keep anything down and you go to a hostel where there's electricity and a warm bed and a toilet close and Netflix on the TV, it's like, civilization is good, like it is like it is good. There is a part of
Yeah.
it there that so that kind of like ingratitude for all the things that we've been given in modern society was really stripped for me when I got sick that day. And I don't know exactly what you're referring to, Ron. I think soup has
Well,
something to do with this
when,
part, but
well, when Bonnie, because here's the thing, from what I remember you telling me, you thought you were up a creek. You thought
oh
you
yeah,
were, and then Bunny, her name's Bunny, the lady who ran the hostel
yeah,
was Bunny. Like, not only did she put him up, but dude, she was gracious to you in a way
yes, yes,
that affected you. That's
yeah, absolutely,
like, because that's what you didn't tell Mark is
right, yes, yep.
okay. So if you could fill Mark in on just how far she went.
Yeah, this wonderful lady named Bunny. She's Appalachian Trail history legend. She hiked the trail 3 times in a row, 2000, 2001, 2002. Self-proclaimed hippie for Jesus. She's the one that picked me up off the trail when I was sick as a dog. Her old Ford, vintage Ford was covered in bumper stickers from left to right. And I called her up that day when I was sick and I was like, hey, is it okay if I still come? And I was expecting like, I don't know, we don't really want to spread anything. And her response was, oh my gosh, what do you need? How can I help you? And she ended up paying for like 3 or 4 days for me to stay there while I got rested up. And I really only did like 2 days worth of work. So just like super gracious and has a real heart for the Appalachian Trail and just a good heart for other people as well. And so, yeah, that just realizing the goodness of society and of that particular thing was really impactful
Mm.
for me and kind of stripped a lot of the negativity of that. So I think, yeah, to go back to your original question, spiritually now, it seems kind of cliche, maybe it's basic, but I don't think it really is. Of like we have it pretty good, you know. It's like all things considered, there's a lot to be grateful for. And I
Yeah.
think that when we put our focus on that, we can seem very sophisticated if we get into like, well, the industrial agricultural complex is raping the earth, and it's not good for anybody. And the modern industrial complex is raising up the proletariat against the bourgeoisie, and all these government institutions are making us hate each other, and it's all very sophisticated. And don't get me started, we could get into the weeds with it, but at the end of the day, like the fact that this country runs the way that it does because so many normal hardworking people that want their family
Yeah.
to do well and are contributing, and it's really a miracle that, and like Peterson talks about this a lot. It's like the dysfunction is not the marvel. It's like that this thing actually runs is the marvel, you know, that we can
Right.
sit here in my chair and your chair and talk about this over the internet is like, you know, we take it for granted, but this really is something to marvel at, and it's something to be grateful for. And so I'm trying to hold on to that because it's easy to do when you just have a backpack, but when you're living in modern society and the expectations of the world and the society come up, and it's a little bit harder to be grateful, I feel like. But I'm trying to remember, and that's why I'm grateful for stuff like this to talk about it, because it brings me back to that place of like, no, life is good, and there is soup, and we just got to tell
Yes,
everybody that like there is
there's
soup,
soup.
you know.
So not all who wander are lost, and there's soup.
That's right.
Uh, Chris Howard also asked. He said, I know of a woman who ran across the country to raise money for a charity and kind of got hooked on that experience, and
Mm.
did it more times. Does Joe have a want to go again feeling? Are you hooked on? Do you have are you habitually? Let's see. Put it this way: are you an habitual wanderer now, or are you
Yeah,
ready to set down roots?
definitely. Definitely ready to set down roots. I think that there's a couple people who have asked me that question, especially like towards the very like right when I finished. People are like, "Oh, you're gonna walk back?" I was like, "Oh no, no, I am not gonna do that." Like I know what it. I kind of like had an ignorance, and ignorance is bliss when you're walking through. Like if I knew what it took to do that, I don't know if I would have done it in the first place. And I'm very convicted that I think there like I really do think that God called me to do that for whatever reason, you know, like
Right.
there are multiple reasons, but if the call isn't there, then the grace isn't there. And so I have a like before I was very attracted to it, and now I'm not.
Mm.
Especially in the way that I did it with no money and no real plan and stuff like that. Um, I would be interested maybe at some point to section hike the Appalachian Trail. That was a beautiful experience, and I think that that experience of nature and just getting out of the man-made environment was something that was really good, and I would love to do that at another point and possibly bike across the country one day. But I would do it differently. You know, I'd have a credit card and plan out stops and stuff
Well,
like
this was
that. But
definitely more of a pilgrimage. It sounds like of sorts.
yes, absolutely, yeah,
The fact
yeah,
that
and
you're not
I
dead is God. You walked
Well,
when he told me he's like, yeah, I'm walking with this dude named Tim, and we're not going to use any money. I'm like, you crazy? You're gonna die. I didn't tell him. I'm like, Lord, you need to heal the boy. But here we are. Actually,
were there any? Did you meet some scary characters along the way, or were you? I mean, were there any close calls or that sort of
Um,
thing, or was it pretty chill? That
a
one.
couple people of, you know, that were either like mentally unwell or maybe possessed or on drugs or a combination of the three, but nobody was ever physically violent towards me. I had one guy who was very upset and threatened to fight, but I tried to de-escalate and just walk away, and he didn't he didn't do anything, which is good.
You can run across those here in Southern California any day of the week. That kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
person.
that's
Just
actually where I met him. Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's right. Sounds about right. I've seen a couple of those guys. They may have been my guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you live, Mark?
I'm in Redlands, California. It's about 50 miles east of LA.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
Gotcha.
so between LA and Palm Springs.
Okay. So my
Yeah.
route was through Route 66. So I walked through like Barstow and,
Yep.
you know,
Uh,
Amboy and
well,
all
San
that area.
Bernardino. You probably cut through San Bernardino or if
Yep.
Route
Yeah,
66.
well,
Yep.
San Bernardino County for sure.
Sure.
We went through almost all of it. San Bernardino itself, we didn't. Once we hit Fontana, we kind of stayed north and west.
Okay.
So we didn't
Yeah, that makes
take
sense.
66 all the way once we
Okay.
got into the LA metro area. I wanted to hit. I had 4 pilgrimage sites along the way. One of them was in Maryland, one of them was in Alabama, one of them was in Oklahoma, and then the last one was the San Gabriel Mission of St. Junipero Serra in San Gabriel, California, in the
Okay.
LA metro area. So we were kind of once we hit the metro, we're heading towards the mission.
The the traffic. How did you? Is the last day harder than the first when you get to
Mm,
the end, or is it?
yeah,
I don't. I can't imagine the feelings you must be going through at the
the
end.
last day was all joy. Like it was, I was so ready to be done. Um, yeah, and I had my friend. He drove my car all the way out from Indiana, and my mom flew
Okay.
in, and my sister flew in. So
So you
there were
had
a
it all
couple people
timed.
there.
You had a pretty good idea by the time you hit California what pace you were on your pace and
Yep.
there were no hiccups.
Yeah, and my grandma, she was turning 91 on August 10th. So that was kind of a good barometer of like when we wanted to finish. We wanted to finish before then so that I could celebrate with her for her 91st birthday. And when we looked at the numbers, it was like, oh yeah, like that's going to be like 10 miles. That's like 10 miles a day for the next 2 weeks. Like we can definitely swing that. So we kind of like made it, hey Luke,
Hey,
we made it so that, we kind of knew that we could finish on that day. And the last couple of days we kind of pulled back the reins a little bit so that we can make that happen. So like the
Okay.
last night we stayed in West Hollywood, blended right in, just set up our tent right on the sidewalk.
It's
Um,
right along with the other tent dwellers. I
well,
mean,
it's funny
there's
because like we went to church and I had a collared shirt on because we went to church. I had one collared shirt and my buddy was like, yo, bro, you got to take that shirt off. Like, so I did,
well,
so
here's is
disheveled my
another. We
hair.
got. I feel like I got two Supermen on the show. We've got one that's crossed the country on foot, and the other one's raising two sets of twins.
Oh yes,
a
yes.
different kind of trial. Oh
Luke,
gosh.
welcome to the House of Woo. Have you met
Oh
Ron
hi.
Copperman?
I'm not sure. Hey Ron. Mark says good things.
Yeah.
Nice to
Nice to
meet you.
meet you.
And Joe, I unfortunately I've just caught. I mean, what you've been talking about.
You
Kind of
do
piecing
have
things
two sets
together.
of
But
twins,
sounds like
so
you've had a very adventurous life.
yeah,
And
it's
I
great to meet you.
Yeah, great to meet you. I know I feel out of place. I don't have a beanie on, but I do have a mustache, so
You got a hat. You're fine.
I got a
It's
head.
it's February in Indiana. Yeah,
Yeah.
I constantly have a beanie on.
Anyway, I hate to interrupt, but I just saw you
No,
guys were
it's
live
good.
and
It's good.
just put the kids down. Thought I'd hop on, say hi.
Well, good to see you. It's been a while since we've talked, so it's
How
nice.
how
It
old are
has
your
been.
twins, Luke?
Yeah, so the baby's just turned 8 months old, so
Okay.
been occupied with them recently, and then the older boys are 3. They'll be 4 in April. So
Okay, nice.
yeah, 2 sets of twin boys, 3 years apart. Uh,
Let's
yeah,
go.
living in like a little. It was a 2 bedroom house, but I kind of modified a room to add another bedroom. So, but 1 bathroom, little 1 bathroom house. On a little bit of acreage here
Oh,
in Northwest Arkansas. So it's crazy, man.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm sure
and
you guys are
you're Catholic
stirring to
too,
get
aren't you,
some
Luke?
weather.
I'm
Are you
not
Orthodox?
Catholic. I'm not Orthodox.
How did I think
Technically,
you were?
we go to an
Sorry.
evangelical church, but
Oh,
I would
okay.
say I'm Catholic curious. But
Okay.
my wife has essentially said, "No way in hell are we going to a Catholic church." So it leaves me in a bit of a
My bad.
predicament.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got that confused.
Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I'm metagelical,
It's,
if that's a thing. Going to my evangelical praise and worship church and then praying my rosary and
I
doing
like the
liturgy of the
meta.
hours. But
I like the metagelical. That's a good one. I've never heard that before.
that's
That's
that's a
awesome.
Paul Vanderklay
yeah,
ism.
PVK, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
You guys have probably heard this one, but I heard a joke of like, people are always asking me, "Are you post-trib, pre-trib?" And I'm like, "I'm pan-trib. It'll all pan out."
Yeah. Oh,
sounds
gosh.
about right.
Yeah. No, that stuff is just so boring to me, honestly. Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Luke, I got a question for you. Are you cool with the rosary? And
Yeah.
okay? No, I like that. I'm just
No, like I said, I mean, honestly, if left to my own devices, I'd probably be going to a Latin mass or something crazy like that. But just got family considerations, you know.
oh, no, I just personal. Just was wondering. I'm married. Joe knows this. I'm like curious about her, the Theotokos. Mary.
Oh, Mary, yes.
Yeah, I'm like she who will not be mentioned in the Protestant world.
It was weird. Okay. Um, yeah, to be totally honest with you guys, it was about 2 years ago. Maybe it was right around like after we found out my wife Natalie was pregnant with a second set of twins, and just a lot was going on in our lives. We own a business. We were trying to sell the business, and knowing we had another set of twins coming, and I had just kind of job insecurity. Um, a lot of things hit at once, and I essentially fell into depression in a way like I had never before.
Mm.
And the rosary, I mean, praying the rosary, praying to Mary really helped me through that.
What happened? Dude, give me details.
Um, yeah, another thing is just like I was saying, we're in a little house, we have a lot of kids, like, and I'm an introvert. I don't know if I'm on the spectrum or what, but I can just get overstimulated pretty easily. And I would just kind of like just get to the point I couldn't even talk in the mornings. Things would just be so crazy. Just getting out of the door. Maybe my wife and I would get in a little tiff or something, and I would stutter. I couldn't. It's like my brain just kind of would
Right.
fry. It would just
Okay.
like kind of break. And so then like once the whole family left, I would sit down, pray the rosary, and it would heal me. It'd like heal
Yeah.
my mind.
How did you come across this? I mean, okay, so you're melting down, freaking out. Oh, like I think I'm gonna go get a rosary. Like, how'd that come in?
Yeah, no, so I I grew up pretty much in the non-denominational evangelical world, but then fell out of faith essentially in grad school when I was in my like mid 20s, and then coming back into faith. Um, I kind of didn't have all those boundaries up, so I was like listening to a lot of different stuff. Um, so, like found PVK, found well, of course, it kind of started with Peterson and Peugeot and the PVK, and then I found a Robert Barron, Bishop Barron, and there was just something about him that just really drew me in. Just like the way he speaks, just really makes sense to me. I enjoy philosophy, and I feel like he speaks. He's a trained philosopher, so he speaks in that language. And honestly, it was like just the whole Bishop Barron Word on Fire thing kind of got me interested into more of the Catholic tradition. And so I essentially got a Word on Fire rosary with a little prayer book from Word on Fire and started trying it out.
So was it so weird for me to say this. Well, no. So your relationship with Mary, it was more like I'm freaking out, like Bishop Barron. Hey, got this pamphlet and these beads. Let's give it a whirl, and it worked.
It was more like,
Was there a drawing, an impression? I mean, I'm just interested.
yeah, no, I'm trying to piece it together. Yeah, I think I had started praying the rosary before I was experiencing that kind of
Okay.
the mental health stuff.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
kind of already developed it, and it had it almost as
Okay.
a tool, like a
Okay.
spiritual tool. And I think just seeing that effect of kind of experiencing, the mercy of Mary,
What was that like?
that
What was there?
merciful mother. To me, it just filled a gap.
How?
Okay, this All this stuff gets so personal.
Oh, and listen, I
You know-
have no boundaries. I'm like,
You don't have to answer any of his questions,
No,
but
it's
this
totally
is the
fine,
House
it's
of
totally
Woo,
fine.
so
Think
well,
on
this
that
is
one.
listen. I'm going to be honest with you, dude, because nobody's watching by now, and they're probably like, dude. And Joe knows this. Like, I'm kind of married. I've had things happen to me that I don't. I've met somebody, and she's cool, and I'm like, but she never said her name, so that's like my caveat for bailing out on it. But when you said
Yeah.
married and it's beneficial, I'm like, all right, dude, what happened?
Someone's
Oh,
watching.
right,
The
Tinder.
Marylander. Literally the Marylander.
Yeah, well, okay, so I mean, just growing up, I felt like my mom was always someone who I could be open with. Like my mother was always just that. She was that personification of just mercy and acceptance for me. And so I think there's something about experiencing like the divine image of that just it allowed me to bring my full self and like my brokenness. Does that
Okay,
make
no, I
sense?
like
I felt an acceptance through Mary's mercy that I think there's just something about like the divine masculine that mercy can sometimes be hard to experience in a real way. I think for me, just in growing up, my dad was much more of a I felt more of a kind of a judgment from my father. He was more of the standard bearer.
It was the
You know,
law.
he was the law. I mean, this is typical masculine feminine dynamics,
Right.
and I think in in praying to Mary, it opened up a divine mercy in a way I hadn't experienced before.
And
Uh,
was it a gradual, spiritual encounter, or was it a moment like, "Hey, dude, who are you?" and you're cool?
See, I think the way I am, I'm much more abstract. I wouldn't necessarily say a divine encounter. It's more getting to know the character of this divine person.
Okay.
Like I think, and this is one way that I've always like I've not felt super connected with a lot of the way evangelicals talk about their spirituality. Like the idea of that personal relationship with Jesus, it's never it's always been hard for me to grasp
Right.
because I'm much more abstract in my thinking. Like
Right.
it takes me a while to experience that nature. It's more like like I'm reading letters about my father. I'm watching,
Hmm.
movies about my
Yeah,
father. I'm thinking about the
I got you.
history of my father, as opposed to my father standing right there in front of me and I'm having a conversation with him. And this is just one of my personality deficits.
It's
So
not a deficit, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's just who you. It's not a net def. I won't. No. Uh, you people are a lot more mystical, for lack of a better word, or charismatic than they know, because I can prove it to you right now. One, you wouldn't be talking to God unless He talked to you first, and you said yes. Now,
right.
okay, so now that we got that out the way, so anyhow, uh, I
you're getting the full Ron Copperman experience, Luke.
Yes, but I think just in
yeah.
my imagination has a hard time
Yeah.
imagining a person or seeing the person. I'll feel
Yeah.
the effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Experience the effect.
But you do feel, but you do experience it because
Yeah, I think
something
it's real. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. See, now that's interesting because that's proof positive.
Oh yeah, and I mean I'll
There
be
is definitely something to what you're saying about Mary filling a gap within that cosmos of spirituality. I think that there's a lot there, and I think at least from my experience, my cursory understanding of the history of the Catholic Church, like a lot of times it can get a bad rap of like, well, the Pope said Mary is God, so we have to believe him now. It's like it just kind of grew up from this will of the people that like, okay, yeah, there
Yeah.
is like a feminine nature to this whole thing, like, and particularly I think it's strong within like Mediterranean and like warmer climates for whatever reason. Like the amount of mothering that I experience in Louisiana as opposed to like other places, it's like the feminine is strong in Israeli culture. You know, like you think about a Jewish mom, it's just like, yeah, like that's a strong character. You think about a Southern mom, it's a strong character. So like for whatever
Yeah.
reason, these pockets of the world have a better understanding of like the feminine and motherhood and things like that. And like we've received that over the years, over the thousands of years. And I think that there's something to that of like, okay, yeah, like there is a lack there and there can be a fulfillment in that. And some people experience the divine motherhood of God. Like that's cool too. Like, you know,
Yeah.
whatever floats your boat kind of thing. But Mary definitely does have a role and a purpose in the spiritual life of the Christian, I believe. And I'm learning that more and more through because it's not natural for me. Like it's not something, even though I'm Catholic, like I grew up with all of this. It's not
Okay.
something that's natural for me. I'm kind of like I have all the head knowledge, but I don't have any of the like experiential or like um, natural inclination towards that.
Yeah. Has the rosary been part of your practice at all, Joe?
Yeah, actually, so for Lent this year, I do feel the Lord calling me to pray that every day for Lent this year. But over the past, like the first half of the walk, I prayed it every day, and then when I was in seminary, I prayed it every day for about 3 years. So there's been pockets where it's been more prevalent and less prevalent. Yeah, yes, but not like something that's been completely consistent throughout my spiritual practices
Yeah.
throughout the years.
One thing that I've just absolutely loved is learning the Ave Maria. So
Mm,
learning the Latin, and I'll sing
yeah,
the Latin. There's a
yeah.
really good channel. I mean, you guys might know of it called Sing the Hours.
Mm,
Have you heard of him?
Mm.
But it's a guy. He's a convert to Catholicism, but he'll the liturgy of the hours. So he'll sing. I mean, so morning, so uh, lauds, if I'm saying that right, and then
yeah.
vespers in the evening, and then
Mhm.
he does. There's another channel, Chants and Rants, that has the night prayer, Compline.
Yes.
But then he also has a full rosary that's sung in Latin.
Mm,
And I haven't memorized it all, but definitely the Ave Maria. I know that, and I love singing it so much, and it just brings me so much peace. There's
mm.
just something about it. I don't know. Uh, I don't know what it is. It makes me feel so deeply connected to like my Western Christian tradition. Like just thinking about
Oh,
monks singing the Ave Maria, up and down the
yeah.
centuries. It's amazing.
And it
That is
brings you
beautiful.
peace. Yeah, and it
Oh,
brings you peace.
absolutely. Yes.
See,
No.
the reason I'm grilling you so much is because I look for the results. Like
Uh-huh.
like if something's better, it's better. That that's not an and so I'm backwards engineering it. It's like why? And when I hear Mary's involved, it's more it's the Protestant place you don't go. And I've been wrestling with this thing for a while now. And I find it, and so when it's because I know my life and I'm working it out, but when I hear someone else go, yeah, I prayed to her, I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but then I've had an effect. I'm like, why? Not like why, but what happened? Why? What? Um, I think Joe calls it data. They're data points
Yeah.
where you call on this name and something happens. That's interesting. And
Yeah, it's really cool for me to hear too because like I was saying before, like this like I'm I guess even though I grew up Catholic and like I'm steep, like I went to seminary for 3 years and all that stuff. Naturally, I'm more of an evangelical, like that's just like my temperament, my
Hmm.
bent, I guess. So it's cool for me to hear from non-Catholic people about the rosary and about Mary because it's like, oh, I could learn something from you because you don't have all the Catholic baggage in your head of like why
Exactly.
you should
Yeah.
be doing this or things like that, you know. So
Uh-huh.
it's yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it really is a crazy thing that's happening, and I think like Paul Vanderklay is putting his finger on something. I don't know if that name metagelical is gonna
I
stick,
bet you.
but something is happening with this kind of this mixing, Joe, like you and me talking, me being like an evangelical with a Protestant leaning, I mean with a Catholic leaning, you being like a Catholic with an evangelical leaning. It's like we're there are different natures of Christian spirituality that the traditions hold, and I think we're able to borrow from these other traditions to make up for what's lacking in our own. Um, I mean, just for example, like the more I've learned about, Mariology, the more I see just a gaping hole in like modern Protestantism, like evangelicalism. There's just a gaping hole in terms of the position of this like divine feminine.
Mm,
Just the way that you think about it, it blows my mind to think about God preparing an earthly vessel for his only son. The Immaculate Conception, the fact that God had to prepare essentially an ark, a human ark for his son, and that was
mhm,
Mary.
mhm,
And what is her spirit? She's humble, you know, full of grace. She's open to the Spirit, and that
mm.
posture is just so beautiful. And I think
Yeah,
there's just something I just reflect on her all the time, and I'm just blown away. And there's
and
a certain nature.
the reverence needed for the Old Testament Ark of the Covenant, like how much more should we revere the New Testament Ark of the Covenant? Like it's like, hey, don't touch that if you're not supposed to, because you will die.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die.
Oops, it fell off the wagon. Don't reach for it.
Don't stop! Oh, he's gone.
Oh, saw that one coming.
Yeah. Uh, and in the
Sorry, I
end,
didn't
it
mean to
all, it
derail
all,
you.
no,
Yeah.
you're great. It all points to God and His providence. But to me, it points to just a beautiful posture that we're called to take, which is this open, receptive posture to receiving the Spirit,
Mm,
and just thinking what could be born in us if we have that posture towards the Spirit, that openness.
absolutely.
And I think
Yeah.
there's a way in which Mary embodies that in a way. I just no other character, no other archetype embodies it in the same way. And I've just, I learned so much from that. Um,
Mm,
Hey, Luke, I have
yeah,
to have
that's
full
beautiful.
disclosure because you've been honest, and Joe knows this, and I think even Mark. Like with her, like I'm not saying I met her, but a few years ago, I was going through a very dark time. I mean, bad. And in a dream, a girl showed up, and like that, everything changed. Boom, freaked me out, and I'm like, I don't know who she was, but if I see her, we're getting married. And like this is the kicker, all the demonic junk gone, like just gone. Didn't try, didn't have to do anything. And when I think about her, he shows up. Like I am sitting in a Protestant Pentecostal church. If I start talking that way, I will get crucified.
that's incredible. I mean,
But when you
gotta
said
be
peace,
Mary.
but the thing is when you said you got peace, I'm like, okay, this is a data point. This is interesting. When I first met Jesus, it freaked me out, but I used his name, and I'm like, all right, we'll work it out. So here it is, something else. Like I have no grid. I am not lost in the woods in the bad way. And I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, well, she didn't say her name, so I don't have to commit. But it's very confusing. But I like when I hear, yeah, I was in a bad way. I talked to her. Now I'm cool. I'm like, all right. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know we have soup. It's good. You'll have to rewind it. But the joke is when Joe was in a bad way on the trail, he was in a very bad way, and the lady showed him kindness, and all his thoughts about how bad the world was, they left because he had kindness, he had a place to stay, and he had soup. And so with She Who May Be Mary in my life, I'm like, God, I don't know where we're going with this, but I don't want to deny if it's something good. That's where I'm at. Like my compass is spinning, but not in a bad way. But hearing you talk, it's interesting. Like, okay, so you too, huh? That's interesting. That's where I'm at. But I just want to let you know that's why I was grilling you.
No, yeah. No, you're good. You're good.
So I'm like, all right, tell her I said hi. Like,
Well, it's getting pretty
no,
late for you guys. Go ahead.
there-
How much time do you guys have? It's almost 7 o'clock my time, so it's closing on 10. Ron's got work in the morning. How we doing? Give it 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good with 10, 15 more minutes.
Yeah, I've got dishes to do, but this is
Oh.
it's great chatting with you guys.
No, it's
Yeah,
good having
the
you.
wife's out. She's doing like a Valentine's party with girlfriends. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, just rare opportunity where I just have the house to myself.
Nice. Okay, let's keep her rolling then.
so look at Mandy. She goes, through my darkest time, I came out the other side, and suddenly my house is full of Mary art. Definitely something missing. It's, I guess, okay.
What are
how
your
does
thoughts on all of this, Mark?
Well, as Ron knows and Luke knows, I came back to Jesus vis-a-vis Buddhism, and I'm not saved from Buddhism. It's actually the Tibetan Lama Garchen Rinpoche more or less sent me back to Christianity. I went this back in 2016 and spent a week there. And when we were done, it was like, okay, nice having you. Now go be a Christian, an American.
go home?
Go.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So I'm pretty flexible on all this stuff. I don't I know definitely Jesus is my vehicle. I mean, I don't I've looked at the rosary. I've considered it a lot. I've looked at them. I mean, and I know that there seems to be something profound to it. But it's I can never get out of the Gospels and the epistles of Paul. Every time, even in the Old Testament, I'll spend some time in the Old Testament. Great, but it's always back to Jesus and Paul for me. And then like now I am spending some time in Tibetan texts, but and we'll be doing that for the channel. But that's more. The reasoning though is always going to swing me back around, and then people will see it. We'll keep swinging back around to Jesus. I don't know if you know anything about the Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism, but it's very interesting to me that this idea in Buddhism of a person who basically forsakes nirvana out of compassion for humanity to descend back into to the life of suffering for the benefit of all others. That's a Buddhist idea, but it just fits identical. It just matches up too closely for me to be coincidence to what you see, the description of what is the mission of Jesus Christ in Philippians chapter 2. It's just this idea. I'm not going to cling to heaven.
Not
I'm going
deem
to.
equality with God something to be grasped at. Rather, he emptied himself, taking the form of a slave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that idea is in Buddhism.
There's a
and its
there
ideas. It's amazing to me that these things, and they co-arose almost. It's like they're like two trees on opposite sides of a forest that just grew up together, and they're like twins. It's a really interesting idea. That this is my experience. And then when I came back to Christianity, the problem wasn't really trying to find a church that had God, in my opinion. It was like all of them seemed to have God. Then it's like, now what do I do? So I had to get attacked by a dog for me to hear which church to go to. And then God says, go to this one. Okay, I'll go to this one for now. It's not that it's easy. It's not an easy church to go to. It's not a church I'd choose normally.
None of them are, Mark. I'm realizing none
Maybe
of them
that's
are.
it. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
It's just be happy with your misery wherever you're at.
There's people in all of them.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. No, it's not. It's going to church can be very challenging.
Somebody's going to be, Mark, I got it figured out. And I think I told you this before. All churches are going to be, they are mandated by God like this. You got, out of 12 people, 3 are going to be your best friend, and 1 might even take care of your mom. 8 are going to be like, I'll see you on Sunday, and 1's out to get you.
Maybe I don't know. It's just a friend of ours in the corner, Neil, suggested I maybe check out Charismatic Catholic if I can't, because there's a very good chance that my days are numbered at the current church I'm at. But so if I don't if I am cut loose by them, then I will have to make a choice. And then I've thought Catholic is very much on the table. The only problem is, does it fit my personality type, and can Catholics handle a person who won't renounce Buddhism but is fully dedicated to Jesus? I don't know if it will break people's thoughts.
Is that where the conflict is, Mark, with your current congregation? Your stance on Buddhism, or is it something else? Or if it's sensitive, you don't.
I don't talk about it around them. I knew it would blow things up if I did. I just don't talk about it. It's bad enough that I seem like I seem too much like a universalist for some of them, even though because the Tibetan thing kind of allows me to kind of navigate those waters in strange ways. But that just if they knew how influenced I am by Tibetan Buddhism, it'd freak a lot of them out. but I'm also a charismatic. I mean, I wake up, as I said, I wake up every day expecting to hear from God.
Yeah,
it's just I'm either charismatic or a nut. That's they can go both ways,
or both,
or both. Now, let me ask you, Joe, did it help your antenna? Did you tune in spiritually, or did it what does it do to a person? Not really having a roof to sleep under, or at least not your own, being on the road like you were, depending on God like you were. What does that do to your spiritual antenna? Does it just feel lonely? Or is it both? A little of this and a little of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there was a trust in God providing throughout that time that is now unshakable. I guess it's
Mm.
become a part of who I am. So, like, I mean, I trusted God before, and I trust Him now, but um, and it was refined a little bit in the sense of I'm not going to get what I want. I'm going to get what's promised and what I need, if that makes sense. So it's like relying on the promises of God as opposed to the like my own wants or my own intuitions as to how God is going to fulfill what I want. Um, so on the road itself, I think I hit a point probably like in Tennessee that I just stopped being worried about where I was going to sleep. I was looking for where I was going to sleep, but I stopped being worried about it. Whereas before I was worried about it. And the thing that helped me the most, I think it's in Philippians as well, that what Paul says about have no anxiety at all, but through prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God, and then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. And I love that so much because the peace of God surpasses all understanding. So it's like I still had no idea where the heck I was going to stay, but I just had peace and I knew that God was going to make it happen, whether it was on the side of the road in a thicket of brush or whether it was in a mansion. Like I stayed in both of those places on the walk, and just like having those after 300 days of God providing a place to stay every day. Like I have no inclination that he's going to stop doing this now.
Mhm.
So it's like at a certain point, like you would have to have anti-faith to like be worried about it. And there were some times where like circumstances would come up where it would test that, but then that's always like the game of like, oh, okay, like we're here now, so like this is happening. So it's like, how can I have faith in the midst of this situation? Um, I don't know if I'm answering that question
Yeah.
Hey,
well. I guess
you're doing good.
the providence on the road was something that was really, really profound. And I think spiritually how that helped um, is that I think that I've I've found that to really love somebody, for me, I have to know that I'm gonna be taken care of. Um, and that understanding of like that I'm a son and that God is gonna provide for my needs and that I can bank on that at the end of the day. Because loving it hurts. It always is like I I want to save a little bit of this for myself, or that's going to be difficult, or I'm going to have no way of self-preservation after I love this person in this way, or that might hurt me. Um, and so I think that recognition of the providence of God as a baseline fact in my life that can't be changed has opened me up to love a little bit better.
Mm.
Definitely not perfectly, but it's like I can give of myself in this way that hurts, or I can give somebody my last piece of bread, so to speak, because I know that I'm going to get some more because I'm beloved, and God is going to take care of me. And it doesn't depend on whether I do it right or not. Like, because there were many times on the walk where I made the wrong decision and God still came through. Um, so I think I definitely don't do that perfectly, or maybe even well at this point in my life. Um, but I think that is a part of that divine love that God calls us to. And we like a lot of times in sermons or in preaching or in talks and stuff, I hear people talk about like, well, we just have to love. Like you just have to love with everything that you have. And it's like tell us how to do that. Like where do you get the power to do that? It's like you can't just like go out and will it. It's not how it works. It has to be a gift that's received. And I think I just like barely grazed the surface of that gift of like, once you know that you're provided for, then you can give of yourself in a
Mm.
self-sacrificial way because you know that you're going to be filled back up. It's like that story of the the servants, where like he's forgiven this huge sum, and he goes and he beats the other servant because he owes him a much smaller sum. And people have different interpretations of that, but I think that guy who was forgiven the whole sum,
Mm-hmm.
he only got in his head what he asked for. So he asked for, hey, just give me more time and I'll pay you back. And the father said, you're forgiven. It is done. It's holy. It's sanctified. You're done. You don't owe me anything. And he heard like, okay, I'll get you your money. Like, don't worry about it. And then he goes and he beats his fellow servant because like he's trying to get that money back so that he can pay back God. And yeah, there's none of that. Like you can't pay back God. It's way too big. We don't deserve it. It's not going to be.
So
Yeah,
now what
it's
are you
just this.
doing? What are you doing with your time now? Are you pushing paper in a cubicle, or are you working at a Costco, or are you doing,
Yeah.
what do you
I
do now?
I told Ron on my first day of work, I am now a cog in the machine of the medical industrial complex. And Ron's like, yeah, just don't squeak and no one will bug you. And if you're an unsqueaky cog, nobody will bug you. And so
That's it. Yeah.
I work
So
as an EMT, doing
okay,
medical transports, and then I have a part-time job as a firefighter.
okay.
Um, yeah, so
You're just
that's,
determined to be a hero, aren't you?
I guess,
You just like that role in life. That's good.
yeah.
That's definitely it's you. That's good.
There's a lot of things I like about firefighting.
Okay.
The downtime on the job, the helping people when they need it, um, being able to pray and work out and things like that and read. If there's nothing going on, like if there's no training or you're not on a call or something like that, it seems
So
like.
now that we know and the internet knows that you're a firefighter, you're going to, should we the girls are going to be all over you.
Oh.
I mean, the firefighter thing, it just sends it up to the next level. Walking across America, that's impressive. But now you're a
He's a
firefighter.
He saved lives.
That's great. I have not saved any lives. I don't know if that helps my cause, but I do have a girlfriend.
Oh,
So,
good. Oh,
Nice.
good.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. So you may follow
We've
the
been-
path of Luke Thompson, and that'll be your true trial.
Yes.
Oh,
Two sets of
gosh.
twins.
My
If
cross to
only
bear.
only I were so blessed, and also to bear that cross.
Yeah.
They're a blessing.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah, no,
forward to
that was
somebody.
beautiful, Joe. What you were saying that was really beautiful.
Thanks.
Very.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Helpful
it
for
just
me to remember it too.
yeah, and I think it's that vulnerability that you described that I feel like is my biggest impediment to being fully loved by God is that like not necessarily having to have a plan to make sure everything's okay,
Mm.
Mm.
And just to me what really like stuck with me is you put yourself in a position where you're totally vulnerable, and in that you could really deeply experience God's love and grace and provision.
Mm.
And it's such a vulnerable, kind of frightening position to put yourself in,
Yeah. Thanks for
but
saying
beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the big gifts of the walk is that I was vulnerable in that way, and being able to see God come through in that way. To some extent, it was easier to see him come through because it wasn't mediated by any systems of man or anything like that. It was just like random acts of kindness from strangers or something like that. But another thing that So like in a certain way, it was easier for me to see it, whereas now, like in the midst of the industrial medical complex, it's harder for me to see that. But like the reality is that God is still providing for me, and I'm still just as helpless, you know. And so like it was kind of a stepping stone of like, okay, I could see it very easily because I was so vulnerable, but now that I'm like less vulnerable, and I'm like all of God is providing through all of these mediated human interactions and contracts and things like that. Um, but it's still baseline. It's still all God, you know, like, and so that's kind of like what I was talking about a little bit before about the gratitude of society and stuff like that. It's all God is still undergirding all of that, and He's still the provider, even though, you know, X, Y, or Z gives me my paycheck. It's all God's money, as Saint Mother Teresa said.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, hopefully
the
hopefully it's a good experience for other people too, that they can have hope that God is providing for them. You don't have to walk across the country to realize that, but it does help if you're called to that. Which it sounds like you're not. I don't know if you're maybe when your boys are older, y'all can all go together.
Yeah, I did like a mini version of that when I was in college and kind of having a bit of a crisis in terms of like what I was going to do with my life. And I'm in Northwest Arkansas, so we have a lot of great hiking around
Yeah,
here. So I went to a national forest close by and just took like Cliff Bars and apples and just was out there by myself for 2 nights.
nice.
And did I? And I don't think I even had a tent. It was just like a sleeping bag,
Mm,
like backpack, apples and Cliff Bars, and
nice.
yeah, it was a really meaningful experience. And so it's like, a little taste of what you're talking about.
Mm. I took one step into Arkansas on the walk.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
One step.
from
So were you like in
I was
Oklahoma? Where
going
were you?
I was going northwest from Louisiana into Texas,
Uh-huh.
and then went
Yeah,
over.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess yeah, like it is crazy how when you get out there in the midst of nature and stuff like that, a lot of the biblical examples or a lot of the things that they talk about, they come to life a little bit more, like the meaning of water or the meaning of food or the meaning of shelter. Like these things have weight with them, and I think that ancient peoples would have understood that a little bit better than we do. Um, so like
Yeah.
the
well,
idea of
considering they
having
walked
a
everywhere,
fresh,
right?
yeah, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like I was at a concert. I was at Winter Jam in Indianapolis. I don't know if y'all are familiar with it. It's a big concert thing, and I was just like all of the songs. Like I was just like nudging my girlfriend of like, "Hey, you're talking about a pilgrimage, or they're talking about a walk." Like you just hear it everywhere. Like you hear walking, you hear that imagery, and maybe it's just I have a confirmation bias now, but like it's everywhere. You know, like it's but it's a good. Jesus knew what he was talking about when he said that. You know, so
I have this crazy story if you guys don't mind it.
yeah.
From my experience in the woods, I took my Bible with me. I was just kind of seeking the Lord's guidance, like I was saying, in terms of direction in my life. And so one morning, I had spent the night in this, old Ozark cabin
Mm,
that I just found along the trail. Uh, and it was the morning. I was sitting there just in the doorway of the cabin with my Bible open, reading my Bible, and a snake slithers up towards the Bible that's open in my lap. Its tongue is flicking out. It To me it seemed like it licked the Bible and then it turned around and slithered away.
wow.
Yeah, uh, it's just things like that happen, and it's just like
Do you
anyway,
remember
like
what?
what
Do
you're
you
saying.
remember what you were reading when that happened?
I might have been reading Isaiah. I read a lot of Isaiah uh, on that hike. I don't
Nice.
remember the exact passage, but
Snake's going, oh, I remember this taste. I don't like it. I'm out of here.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, I love it. But yeah, I took the 3-year-olds camping a few months ago. We went up to Missouri. There's like a trout hatchery up there, and went fishing and camping, and it was the best time. So we'll definitely do some camping, father sons camping trips when they get older. It's
When you move the
it's
tribe.
amazing. Yeah, exactly. Oh, me and the tribe. Yeah.
That's when your wife needs a break. She'll just send you guys out and just let you go.
Here's some candy bars. Go.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. I can only imagine what life's gonna be like, and we'll see. I mean, who knows? We're crazy, and we're not necessarily done having kids. We might. I don't know. It's it's in the Lord's hands. But
You are Catholic, yeah.
That's what,
Doing the rosary, popping critters up.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. It's crazy. It's crazy. Kids. Yeah, kids are such a blessing. I mean, it drive me crazy. But such a blessing.
how do I have more?
I know. I'm like, there's something wrong with me. Put me in an institution. Like, but there's something, Joe, and I feel like this relates to what we're talking about, vulnerability. That idea of, I mean, for us, like for me and Natalie, just this stance of being open to having more kids. If it's the Lord's will, like not closing ourselves off to it, not saying, okay, we're done. I'm gonna go get a vasectomy. We're done. Like so many of our friends, which I'm 35, so most of our friends, like they've had their 2, they're done. And when we had our first 2 twins, they're like, oh great, so you guys are done now. We're like, and then we have another 2, and they're like, have you gotten the snip yet? I was like, nah, not yet. We'll see. And there's just being open to what God has for us. Like there's a sense of adventure. It's it yeah, and it makes me feel like I'm unhinged. But I do trust that God will provide for us. I have no idea how. Like I said, we live in like a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 13 square foot house. Like how could we fit more kids in this house? I don't know. But if it's the Lord's will, He'll make a way. You sound crazy
Absolutely.
talking like that in this day and age, but I don't know,
That's
Joe. It's
good
kind of like
stuff, man.
you're
That's a faith walk.
you're walking
Yeah,
across the
that's-
country. It's like I don't know where I'm going to
Well,
sleep. but,
you're
God
walking
will
across.
provide.
You're walking across the continent too, Luke. It's just
Yeah.
a different
Yeah.
continent.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
it's wild.
It sounds. I
yeah,
think
be
you're
enc-
okay
be
with
encouraged,
boys.
man.
No, I just think you're okay with boys. Well, if you bring a girl in, then you're going to need some other room. I mean, you can stack those boys like cordwood, right?
Yeah,
You
just put them all.
keep
Yeah,
getting them
exactly.
bunk beds, But
Yep.
but bring a girl into the mix. It's gonna now we're gonna have something. We need to have something else,
Yeah,
another
like
bathroom or something.
probably.
Yeah, yeah. Boys, you just send them out there. Go bathroom out there.
Oh, I know. They're probably going to be sharing a bedroom, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know if
Joe,
this is
what was it?
encouraging or not, but if you think about it from like a long history point of view, like the amount of comforts that we have in our modern society as opposed to how people lived in the past, it's like now you're crazy because you're living with 6 people and with 1 bathroom, but it's like people didn't even have bathrooms. So it's like, so I don't know if that's helpful. I don't want to take anything away from what you're doing because I do believe that it's unhinged and crazy and beautiful and God's in it. And like, more power to you, brother. Like, do it. Yeah. But there's also, it's like, I think that, like, people just get in their own bubble, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
this is normal and this is good. And if we have 4 people living in this house, we need at least 2,000 square feet. It's like, maybe, but maybe not,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Joe. And I really think about it all the time. And one of our neighbors who lives down the road, he grew up he had 8 siblings, so he was one of 9, and I think he shared a bedroom with 3 of his siblings. And they maybe had 1 or 2 bathrooms in their house. I mean, his dad had a HVAC business that was very successful, and he and his brother kind of took over the business. Have a great life now, but I think about that all the time. I mean, you don't have to go back, like, you go back 2-3 generations, and yeah, I mean, people were packing kids into little houses, like you're saying, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy, just how people forget, like, and they feel like they need all these things. So yeah, no, I
Amen.
think about that all the time,
Amen.
Joe. But then at the same time, it's so countercultural to like have the stance that we do. But
I
you know,
love it. I love it.
yeah,
That's
Mandy's
awesome.
almost in the same boat you are in, only with girls, it sounds like, Luke.
oh really?
And she said they have 3 girls in a room.
Oh, that's awesome, Mandy.
That's
That's
really
awesome.
cool. Well, I should probably hit the sack. I really
Yeah.
appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Joe, for being our guest, and it was awesome. Really appreciate you sharing your
Yeah, I
story with
appreciate it
us,
a lot,
and
too.
I hope to see you around more. And
Yeah, that would be
just
great.
pop into the House of Woo anytime. Ron, you know where Ron is,
Yep. Yeah.
Tuesday
find out.
nights.
and there's always soup.
And there's
Hey, I like soup.
yeah.
Good luck,
Yeah, it was
Luke, with all the
Great meeting you, Joe.
adventures.
Yeah, really.
Great meeting you too, Luke.
All right,
Yeah,
guys, I'm
thanks,
going to
guys.
share some music. Oh, if you can, just to keep your windows open until you'll get a little indicator that your local recording is uploaded to StreamYard to improve the quality of your participation. And then that's it. You guys have a good night. I appreciate it. And here's some Brother Otis. Let's see if I can play it here.
The pages of the Lord and the Bible.